going to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. The unity of the Spirit, it says. So God united the church with the Spirit, and what we must possess in order to practice this unity is a forgiving heart. Why do we need forgiveness to keep the church in unity? The reason is because the gathering of the church, we were called as the saints, but still we are not perfect. Imperfect individuals have gathered and formed the church. So if we do not forgive one another and embrace one another, we will only judge one another and arguments will happen. That is the church. Sometimes we have this wrong standard in our hearts. We sometimes think the church is gathering of the perfect saints, and we have this misconception. We have this unnecessarily too high standard towards each other. There is one phrase that these people often say. How can someone who's born again do such a thing? They say this a lot. How can someone who's born again do such a thing? Can he do such a thing or no? He can. That's why we see that all the time in the church. However, we must acknowledge that people are not perfect and understand that they are not perfect. We have to perceive that and understand that. But if we look at the people with the standard of an ideal example that we learned, only thing you'll see is their shortcomings. That's why we judge, and that's why we talk badly about them. In such an atmosphere, we can't be one. And what is worse, I am being perceived as the same to others, so I get hurt at the same time, and the conflicts happen within relationship. So what we must remember is that we have received this position as children of God and righteous men, but our condition is still the condition of sinners. Not only I myself, but also others have that. As an example, think about the construction sign on the roads. When we pass by, we sometimes see the sign that says construction going on, working in progress, do not cross, do not enter, don't walk on it, etc., etc. If we see those kinds of construction signs on the road, and when we hear these noises of heavy machineries, do we complain about that noise or no? Do we understand and think, oh, they're doing construction work, so it is what it is, right? So no matter how dusty it gets, no matter how loud it is, we understand it. That's how we perceive. So brothers and sisters around me, they all are going through the construction work. So look around and tell their brethren, I am still working in progress. The construction work is going on. Please forgive me. Look around and let's tell each other. Please forgive me also, please, because I lack so much and I'm still working on a lot of stuff. So whenever the conflicts happen and arise, think about it. Oh, they're going under the construction. Sorry for the inconvenience. That is the way to forgive others. And because we are not perfect, forgiving and embracing are only ways to keep the unity. That is our responsibility. Furthermore, the church is the gathering of various types of people. There are no one who think the same way I do. Lifestyles are so different, and it's easy to know that. Let me ask you the question, what's your favorite color? Then everyone will answer differently. What's your favorite food? Everyone's different. Hobbies, background, and what we have learned, and our education, personality, everything's different. And especially the church of Ephesus here, the recipient church of this epistle, was located in the city of Ephesus, which was famous for its trading culture over the sea. And because of that, in the church, there were Jews and Gentiles all mixed at once. So in the church of Ephesus, there were born-again Jewish and born-again Gentiles at the same time. So cultures were different and the lifestyles were so different. Ideologies that they learned were different also. So all types of people were gathered at one place. And that's why Apostle Paul had to write this epistle. By forgiving others, keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. And aside from the fact that we all have different lifestyles, God deliberately put all of us together like this to teach us. He did that on purpose. Let's go to 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 12. For as the body is one and has many members, but all the members of that one body, being many, are one body, so also is Christ. For by one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, whether Jews or Greeks, whether slaves or free, and have all been made to drink into one Spirit. It is one body only, but there are various types of members and parts. There are no same members. Various members were called to be one. Think about these 5 fingers. All fingers have different sizes and lengths, right? Let's say all fingers have the same sizes and lengths. Will that be better? One scholar even said, humans are different from animals because our thumbs can be stretched out 90 degrees. Some scholars even say that. So the fact that all fingers have different sizes and lengths, it allows us to do more work and various types of works. Think about it. If all fingers had the same size, how could we pick up the fork and use it? How could we pick up the pencils and use them? We know it's going to be super difficult, right? Our body need many members and parts to do many works. And that is why we have so many parts in our bodies. Just like that, God called various types of people in His one church to do many more works for Him. And thanks to that, we have better synergy. We have this synergy. So there's no need to feel uncomfortable and bothered to see the brethren with different thoughts and mindsets. But think that God called him or her so I can work together and we can be in unity. So we must remember that. And one more important thing to note is that God does not give every talent to one person. Everyone has their strong suits and weaknesses also. There's something I'm really good at, but also something that I'm not good at. That's how God made each one of us, to help one another and to rely on one another. There's one figure in the Bible who's the most respected among the Israelites, the national treasure, Moses, right? But he was not eloquent in his speech. So God gave Aaron as his partner. Paul, who wrote 14 books in the New Testament, he was a great man, but he was not healthy. So God gave him who? Luke, the physician, the doctor. Except for Jesus Christ, God created each one of us with flaws and shortcomings. Because that's the way we can help one another. And according to His will, He called each one of us in His one church. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 21. Verse 21. And the eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. Why? Because there are no parts in our bodies that are useless. If one gets saved and abides in the church, there is a clear reason why God did that. So we can't judge or talk badly about others. We can't say things like, oh, we don't need you. We can't say that. We should never think that. God put him there because he needs him. Because God has called each one of us, therefore, forgiving one another is our duty and it's our responsibility. It's not optional. It's something that we must do. It's something that we must strive to do. That is how we can do more work, and that is the way to be stronger. In Exodus chapter 20, let's go to Exodus chapter 20, actually find it. Exodus 20:25. And if you make me an altar of stone, you shall not build it of hewn stone, for if you use your tool on it, you have profaned it. If you make me an altar of stone, you shall not build it of hewn stone. Meaning, use the living stones that are not shaped properly, but a little strange, right? Is it easier to build with hewn stone, or is it easier to build with rough living stones? Using hewn stones is much better and easier, right? It's faster. Using rough stones will take a while to build an altar. So you have to stack it this way and that way to see if they match well together. But why did God command us like this? Here is the lesson for us. God wants all of us to forgive and accept one another as who we are. And that's how he builds his church. Is the wall built with hewn stones stronger, or the wall built with rough stones stronger? People who live in an island full of rocks and stones, they say the wall built with rough stones are stronger. Let's say you tried your best to build a wall with well-made bricks and hewn stone. But let's say you also used basalt or any type of rough stones to build this strong wall. But when the storm hits, which wall will break down and which will survive? Actually, the wall built with bricks broke down. The Church of God was not built with the bricks that look identical. It's not like the products from factory. Each one is living stone. But once gathered, no one can fight against it, and we're strong. And that is why God commanded us not to build the altar with hewn stone, because he will work. And let's go to the latter part of verse 25. For if you use your tool on it, you have profaned it. Oh, I see the part aesthetically not pleasing. Let me break that down. You hammer it down. Don't do that, God says. Those stones are brothers and sisters. Their shortcomings. Oh, why is this brother so rude in speech? Why is that brother always looking angry? You may see those unpleasant flaws in your brethren. And when you see that, you want to change it, right? Please, you gotta fix that. You know how many people are struggling because of you? You want to let them know, right? However, what is surprising is that God is telling us not to step in too much. Those who have tried to fix the problems of the others in the past, they know that won't work. It's not gonna work. If you try to fix it for yourself, they go astray even more and will have a lot of side effects happening. It gets stronger when we strive to accept one another. It is not nagging that changes people, but it is my forgiveness that changes people. It is my love for understanding people's shortcoming that changes people and touches their hearts. And that's the way to change people. That's how Jesus treated his disciples. Jesus knew that Peter was going to deny him 3 times and even curse at him. He knew that. And Peter really did deny Jesus 3 times. 3 times before the rooster crows twice. When Peter heard the rooster crying, in that moment, it is written in the Gospel of Luke that he saw Jesus looking at him. Imagine how Jesus would look at him. I knew it. I told you. See what happened. Do you think he would look at him like that? Or, how could you? How could you do this to me? Like that? No. Instead of rebuking or blaming or getting discouraged, how Jesus gazed at Peter was like this: I understand. And for you, I was praying. Indeed, Satan has asked for you that he may sift you as wheat, but I have prayed for you that your faith should not fail. And when you have returned to me, strengthen your brethren. That's what Jesus said, and that's how he looked at Peter. After looking at Jesus, Peter went outside and wept. And after the resurrection and the ascension of Jesus, he became a completely new person. Peter, he dedicated his life to the preaching of the gospel, and he sacrificed everything for the church. Behind the fact that he became the pillar of the church, there were so many God's grace. Jesus forgave Peter's denial and betrayal. That changed Peter. That was the strength of his transformation. Let's go to Psalms 57. Psalm 57, verse 2. I will cry out to God Most High, to God who performs all things for me. To God who performs all things for me. King David praised the Lord, like verse 2 here. But do you know how his situation was when he wrote this? Let's look at this short note before verse 1. To the chief musician said to do not destroy a miktam of David when he fled from Saul into the cave. When he was fleeing from Saul, he hid himself in the cave. But if he get caught, he'll die, right? However, in that situation, David praised the Lord. God who performs all things for me. And we have to pray like this. The very situation I'm in right now, God allowed, and we have to have faith in it. The children, spouses, relationship between brethren, everything came from the Lord for me. Why? Because through all those, I can get closer to God, and my faith can be stronger. And that is a blessing coming from the Lord. So when you see any brethren who give you a hard time, or family members that give you a hard time, just think and believe that God gave you the personal trainer for you, a coach. And that is true. So we have to believe and think that way. Let's say you have your personal trainer who trains you how to work out properly. Should I fight or should I learn? If you fight with your personal trainer and spar against him, you won't learn anything. The trainer might not get along with you and may have different thoughts with you, but when you just focus on what you have to learn, you can grow and change a lot. That is the role of coaches. Coaches do not train their athletes based on how the athletes want to be trained. They train the athletes based on their perception what would be the best way for them. So sometimes the athletes, they hate their coaches. Whenever we ask the marathon athletes, how do you feel about your coach? Most of them are against their coaches. For example, coaches sit in their car and shout to the athlete running next to the car, faster, faster. Then, what would they think while running next to the car? I'm gonna slap him in the face, right? Those thoughts will arise. Coaches, they use the best method to train the athletes that will eventually help them. So as athletes, they may dislike it or even hate it and want to avoid it. But if you go through that process, you grow, right? God gave me these personal trainers and coaches around me because I need them. And sometimes they're together under the same roof 24/7. But if that's the case, we must have the stronger faith. However, if you fail to forgive, there will be consecutive problems happening. If you fail to forgive, the very first thing that will happen is your language. You speak badly about him or her with full emotion, talking behind him. How could he? How dare he? Something like that. Sometimes you even justify yourself saying, oh, that person really deserves this bad criticism and judgment, and talk bad about others' weaknesses. And you know what happens later? The church will be divided. Oh, that brother is the worst. Such an unedifying brother. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 11. Proverbs chapter 11, verse 13. A talebearer reveals secrets, but he who is of a faithful spirit conceals a matter. A talebearer reveals secrets, but he who is of a faithful spirit conceals a matter. So as time goes by, when you spend a certain amount of time with the same people, we know each other so well. And we know each other's strong suits and weaknesses so well. Shameful memories also. That's the most dangerous moment. Because with a trivial matter, all those memories will come back and will make you talk really badly about that person. However, faithful person, he conceals and forgives the matter. The more you spend time with your brethren, the more forgivenesses you must show. That is the only way to maintain the relationship and sustain the unity. But if you do not forgive and if you do not accept, then at one point there will be division happening. Furthermore, if we fail to forgive and just rebuke and criticize others, how will God perceive that person? Romans chapter 14, verse 4. Who are you to judge another's servant? To his own master he stands or falls. Indeed, he will be made to stand, for God is able to make him stand. Who are you to judge another's servant? Another servant here is a brother and sister. All born-again Christians are God's possession. So we call Jesus the Lord. He is our Lord, and we are his servants. We are all servants, born-again Christians. Jesus is servant, and God's servants. But me, judging other brethren, is judging God's servant. Who should judge the servant? The master should. So me judging brethren and talking badly about them is my pridefulness trying to perform God's role. And I can't do this. And you can't do this. We must not do this. Satan was casted out before him because of this pridefulness. So when we are all together in the same church building and in the same house, we must carve this deep into our hearts about this forgiveness. One more. Why do we have to forgive brothers and sisters in the church? Because that is God's command. So we have to obey even though we do not understand. Romans chapter 15 verse 7. Chapter 15 verse 7. Therefore, receive one another, just as Christ also received us, to the glory of God. The Lord has received us and has begotten us as his children. So we must receive one another. God commanded. And we must never forget how he has accepted us. How did Jesus receive us? It's in Romans chapter 5, verse 8. But God demonstrates his own love toward us, in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. When we were still dwelling in sins, he forgave us. That's how he has begotten us. And verse 10, for if when we were enemies, we were reconciled to God through the death of his Son, much more having been reconciled, we shall be saved by his life. When we were enemies, through blood of Christ, he has received us. And when we were enemies, and he is telling us, don't forget how Jesus received me. And forgive others like that. But not once or twice, because we do make a lot of mistakes and repeat the same mistakes. When I look at myself, a lot of times I'm so pathetic. And I think I'm worthless, and it's better for God to just take my life away. I can sometimes think like that. However, God will tell me, I died for you when you were still a sinner, and when you were still my enemy. Even to that mistake and sins I'm repeating and repeating, God will tell me, I already knew that. And I knew it, and for that, I died for you. I died for you. In fact, that is the heart that we must have toward the people who are giving me a hard time. The same heart that Jesus had toward me. The same forgiveness that Jesus showed me. And when we do so, the church can be united. And that is the only way to stay united. When the church becomes one, the body will gain strength. And then, of course, there will be the bearing of fruits. The gospel will be preached even stronger. When newcomers come to church, they do not know much about the Bible, but everyone knows the atmosphere. They can see if we are judging one another or we are loving and forgiving one another. The newcomers know. Whether we're welcoming one another or not, they feel it. But when we become one in forgiving hearts, automatically newcomers will feel something's different with this church, and something's really, really different. They'll feel it. So the forgiveness is so important. In John chapter 13, verse 34, John chapter 13, verse 34, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another. Let's go to Proverbs for the better explanation. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 17 verse 9. He who covers a transgression seeks love, but he who repeats a matter separates friends. One thing to note here is that it says, he who covers a transgression seeks love. It doesn't say he who covers a transgression loves. Do you see that? It doesn't say he who covers a transgression loves, but it says he who covers a transgression seeks for love. So currently, is he a man full of love or not yet? Not yet, right? If you love someone, everything about that person looks beautiful, right? When you fall in love, do you see his flaws or her flaws? No, right? So those who already love don't have to cover the flaws of others, because once the emotion hits strong, you'll be blinded and won't be able to see the flaws. But if you see others' flaws, that means your love grew colder. You forgot it. But even in that state of mind, when you see that flaw, embrace it and cover it. That is the act of seeking love. God, I really, really want to love. Although it's tough, I want to seek for love. You have commanded this, so I cover this flaw. Then, surprisingly, God will give me his heart. And later on, that flaw that bothered you so much will not bother you anymore. When I forgive others, that will melt the hardened hearts of the others. He who covers a transgression seeks love. Jesus gave us the new commandment, love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another. To keep his commandments, we must cover them. But he who repeats a matter separates friends. The church will be divided, the household will have various conflicts, so we must cover them. Philippians chapter 4, verse 5. Let your gentleness be known to all men, the Lord is at hand. Gentleness means embracing and accepting the faults of the others with large hearts. Very similar to the word forgiveness. Let your gentleness be known to all men, it says. Forgiveness instead of gentleness also makes sense. To whom should we show this gentleness? To whom? To all men. To all men. The verse is telling us not to misunderstand. If we really think about it, we are so generous to the people who we like, very forgiving. But you can't consider yourself as a generous person just because you're good at forgiving someone who you're close to. To all men, it says. Jesus loved his own who were in the world. He loved them to the end. It's not easy. It's really difficult. That's why we must pray even more. God, please help my heart. Please give me more love so I can accept and embrace all. Please help me. And we must pray like that.